Joel, congratulations on a pretty special milestone. What does it mean, the obvious one, what does it mean to the first get to 350 top?
I'm obviously really proud. I tried to sum it up early in the week with a piece that I did with the club, but I really haven't got the words for it. But, I love this club, always have, even when I wasn't here. And understand that it's pretty special for the club too. So just going to enjoy the moment that it is.
Have you wrapped your head around it yet, Joel? It's going to be 350?
Not really, Josh. It's I just plan to play each game pretty similar, to be honest, and I don't try and confuse it. And I've done that my whole career. And this one, yeah, there's a little bit playing around on the outside, but it's one that I look forward to just running through that banner tomorrow night and being ready for the Bulldogs.
I know you're going to hate this question, but Hawk mentioned it on that video about he thinks you're the greatest player in the club's history. When somebody says something like that, what does it mean to you?
He's probably my closest ally, and he's probably a bit biased. There has been some pretty good players that have walked through these doors, but I obviously appreciate, not only those words from him, but it was really nice to sit down with him and go through everything.
What would 18-year-old Joel Selwood think about what you've achieved?
To be honest, he wouldn't confuse it too much. He was a pretty simple kid when he walked in, and he's a pretty simple kid now.
He wouldn't be surprised one little bit, can you?
No, he loved footy. He still does. He's hungry. He wants to get the best out of this group. So he probably wouldn't change a hell of a lot.
What's kept the appetite going all through the years?
Just the love of playing footy and the people that are around. I missed saying this early in the week, but Chris and I have been on this journey for 12, 13 years together. But before then, a lot of good people to even get my base of getting my body ready through the medical teams and sports science. And these footy departments are wonderful places when you're inside them. And I'm just so grateful to those people that I've come across over the journey.
A lot of nice things have been said about you, and I know you like talking about yourself. Are you sort of overwhelmed by all the love?
Yeah, you do. You do get overwhelmed. I mean, it's really special though in the moment. I'll make sure that I write these messages down at some stage. I try to get back to them as soon as I can. It's just my way that I like to do it. Don't leave anyone hanging. And to be honest, it's one that I'll be forever grateful for when I finish up one day.
Chris, you played against him once. I looked it up in 2007. Yeah, round of 22, I think it was.
Okay.
It was sort of...
That was the night I actually bashed Nigel Lappin.
Don't look that one up. I think it's most remembered because Corey knocked to his shorts off in the middle of the game. I think that one. Did you sort of feel around the competition then that this young kid in his first year was on the way to something special? I think most of us thought in that first year when that rising star.
Yeah, it was really obvious, not just through his performances on the field as a young player. It's quite rare that a first-year player comes in and dominates the competition as a midfielder the way Joel did, but it's even rarer to come into such a good team. He walked into the best team in the competition and fitted in perfectly with the best midfield in the comp. That said, that they're by itself, irrespective of the way Joel conducted himself off the field and his preparation, all those things, you could see it as an external observer that he was going to be something special.
How do you sort of feel about Hawke's comments that he's the greatest player in terms of impact on the club? Can you sort of factor that in and have a thought about it?
Oh yeah, I'm biased as well because the captain-coach relationship is such an important one, and I just feel so privileged to have worked with such a great captain. I think the positional comparisons are hard, but in terms of I'll just say it. Yeah, he's the best. I think I've said it before. Like I find it hard to compare eras, but he's the best player that I've seen in my time when you take everything into consideration. I actually don't think about those things a lot in terms of looking back and trying to compare players. Is Hawkins as a big, strong key forward a better player than Selwood as an inside grunt midfielder, it's impossible to say. But in terms of impact on a football club and assistance to a head coach, I can't think of any better.
So how can we get to 400, Joel? What are we thinking?
Let
you
him
know
take a
what?
breath.
I sometimes let the mind wander, but to be honest, it's only to the end of the seasons, and that's lifting up that Premiership Cup, and then I quickly get back on with the job that we've got at hand. So that's exactly where I'm at the moment. I mean, our group is playing great footy at the moment, but we still think that we've got steps to take going forward. So 400, don't think so, but maybe.
Do you think if it wasn't sort of a possibility, if you were sort of in 10th position on the ladder or something the last few years, do you think you would have retired earlier, Joel, or has that sort of been pushing you that you are sort of within almost distance of a player?
Oh, I haven't been in that situation, Josh, so I haven't had to worry about that. And those things haven't come into mind in the past.
I'm sure there's plenty on your mind ahead tomorrow night. For you, Joel, in that midfield, the Bulldogs have as good as it gets, the numbers that they can run through there. What are the challenges they present for you as an opposition?
Yeah, I mean, their game was impressive last week. Run and gun side, great around the footy, really impressive in front of the footy last weekend. We've gone into having a look over them, but to be honest, it's about still building us right now too. And we think that we've still got a few steps to take, as I said.
What do you
Joel,
think,
congratulations on reaching game 350. You've played against all three of your brothers in your career. Out of all of them, who gave you the hardest challenge?
You put me in a hard situation. Probably the younger one. He was the one that I grew up with the most because the boys obviously headed into state early, but he probably knew a lot more of my tricks, and he was more the tagger at the time. So that's the seat that he sat in when I played against him. So I loved playing against him, but I loved playing with him even more.
What are some of your memories from your first game? Do you remember it at all?
It's funny, I've been taken back this week. So there was one player on our list that was actually a part of that game, and it was Sean Higgins in a Bulldogs jumper, which was pretty funny when I think back to it. But that game was a disaster for me, to be honest. It was an 8-touch possession game and a 5 free kick against game. So surprised I got a game the next week, but I did.
In your eyes, how has the game changed from when you first started in 2007 to now?
How long have we got? Because there's so many changes. I love the game where it is right now. The changes that have happened to it. I think the best players are getting more chance to be the best players in the league right now than probably they were back then too. So that's how I'll quickly sum that up.
And Chris, what are your thoughts on Joel's influence around the club, especially with the younger players?
Well, I think it's obvious with the younger players, but we shouldn't just isolate it to them. I actually mentioned to the group today that you get some reminders, not just in your footy life, but your life in general, of how lucky that you've been occasionally. And it's not, your success is not always a function of things you've done as an individual. There are sliding doors moments that impact us all. And the fact that we get to walk into the club, and coach and train with and speak to Joel Selwood is something that's just had a remarkable influence on everyone's career. We would all be much less if he hadn't have been at the Geelong Footy Club. So there are the really tangible things in terms of the way that he prepares, the way he plays on field. I think that's the thing even as a coach that inspires me the most. The only slight disappointment that I have as a coach is I never got a chance to play with him, because that would have been the one, following him into battle. Not necessarily sort of, in the back of your mind you would know that you can't do the things that he does, but it'd be that endless search to try to get somewhere near his level that would have inspired me. And I think our young players feel the same.
Just one more. Exciting for John Segler making his debut this week for the Cats. Nice to give him some games before the finals.
Yeah, it hasn't been a perfect road for John. He's had some bad luck with injury, but he's prepared himself well to the point where when the opportunity arose that he would be ready, and that's happened this week with Reece Stanley being out injured. So yeah, it's a dual benefit. He gets a chance to come in and play with the Cats for the first time, but it's also, you know, late in the year in a pretty exciting time for us. So for him, gives him a chance to put his hand up, but it also gives us a chance to have a look at him and make sure that we have some options when the inevitable curveballs get thrown our way.
Could you play both in the one side?
Yeah, we think we could. We've got a few scenarios sort of that we're throwing around with our sort of senior players and our coaches, and that's certainly one of them.
Have you got any more clarity on a time frame, Chris, for Reece?
It's a little bit better than we thought initially, is my understanding. So he was never in the frame to come up this week, but I think I described it as medium-term post-game because that was the way it was described to me, but I don't think it's out of the question that he could play next week as it stands at the moment.
Parfit and Menegola are both in the emergencies. Are they going to play some VFL time this week, or are they sort of a chance with the medical stuff? How are you approaching this?
Yeah, so it's one of the benefits of having the press conference today because we know a little bit more than we would have on Wednesday. So on Wednesday, Menegola was very, very unlikely, all but ruled out, but made a good recovery. He's just got a little bit of a sore knee. And he made a recovery yesterday after doing some work to the point where we thought that he was some chance. So when that happens, we put them in the squad. We still thought it was unlikely. If it was likely, we would have put him in the team. That's our general practice, and then taken him out once we knew that he wasn't right. But he just didn't quite come up today, so he's not playing this weekend. And Parfit, he'll get some game time this weekend no matter what. We haven't quite landed on exactly where that's going to fit with the 22 and the Medi-Sub, but the last time Parfit played was round 12 against the Bulldogs pre-bye. So it's been a while, so we're looking forward to him getting back. I guess the thing that gives us more confidence with Parf is that he's been out with a hand. So he's done a power of running. He's in pretty good shape.
So just to clarify, so Sam's had issues with the knee again. So he's come off a concussion prep like he did last time, and you have the knees giving him a problem again.
That's right. It was unusual, Kingy, because he missed the week with concussion. It seemed as if it was going to be all systems go, but his knees just flared a little bit at training.
You got a deal on the Medi-Sub?
Yeah, I do, but I'm trying to stick to the good discipline of not being too vociferous around what the rules should be. I just want to understand them. I mean, I don't think that anyone likes it, but I think, and that includes people at the AFL as well. I think to understand why it came in, it's really important to go back to the origin of it, which was the concern around player welfare, especially as it related to concussion. So if you look at it through that lens, then the frustration with it all becomes a little easier to manage. But my view is that next year there is scope to change it to make it better for everyone.
And how? Yeah.
No, I'm not going to be drawn on that. I mean, because it's a lot more complicated than a 15-second grab. I could give an opinion, but I wouldn't like to give it without explaining all the rationale for it. And there are things that are a consideration for the commission and people above my pay grade that I don't necessarily think about. Things like there's never been 5 on the bench, and the history of the game, and I guess the way it works at the moment, if you're the Medi-Sub and you don't get on, you still get a game on your record, and I think the players still get match payments, don't they? So yeah, you wouldn't know. Those days ended for you a long time ago.
No, not like that.
But yeah, I think it would be wrong for anyone to think that there's a cohort that are fine with it, and then there's this other cohort that find it really frustrating. I think everyone finds it frustrating. It's an imperfect solution that I'm pretty confident will get worked through over the next off-season.
How's Tom Stewart been this week, knowing he gets to play footy for the first time in a month?
Well, he's taken a little bit of a breather because he was, and he shouldn't have felt this way, but he did feel, that he'd put the team under pressure. So we don't keep score, but if we did, we're in his debt. So he shouldn't have felt that way. But given the fact that we've played well without him, I think gives him and some of our other experienced quality players the confidence that if things don't quite go right for us within a game, or we lose a player or two here and there, that we've still got the depth and the capability to cover them. So I think the important thing for Tom is to just come back in and do what he does, as opposed to thinking like he's got to play with a chip on his shoulder because he owes us.
Is this the rest that might have got, that he's inadvertently got in the end, that you were thinking about managing somebody of his experience and age?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. It wasn't the plan, but it's been a bit of the pattern for us this year. We didn't plan to have Jack Henry out for the first half of the year. Holmes, Dangerfield, Stewart, guys here and there with COVID issues, which every club's confronting. So that's our glass half full kind of, and I think that's the way we need to approach the next couple of months as well. Like things will, and the last 2 years have been good practice in this regard. Things will come up that are unexpected that we need to deal with. We've got the confidence that we'll just keep rolling with the punches and get through. But yeah, so that's the silver lining, that I think Tui would have missed somewhere in the next 4 weeks. Hopefully this is the only one.
The gentleman on the right got a rest planned. Are you planning to look at Joel for a week off? I know he hates a week off, but is it something that you look at?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure that he's a competitor, so he loves playing, but it's a bit like, when we talk about the future with Joel, it's just he and I in particular, and a broader group of decision makers around the club have just always been aligned, and we talk through these things, and I'm not going to say that Joel's ever wrapped when we take him out, but because we've talked so much about it, he's got his head around it and sees the bigger picture on this one. So I think that's a strong chance.
They were the first side in, I think, about 4 years to score over 100 points against Melbourne last year, the Bulldogs. How much of a threat do you see them and their attack at the moment, the way they're rolling?
Oh no, their attack's first class, but their whole game is, don't spend too long looking at the names in their midfield. It gets a bit daunting after a while. And they haven't quite had their full contingent in the front half, probably until last week, with Hugo Hagen playing well and Bruce back, and Norton's obviously a gun. So offensively they're really dangerous. It's built off the contest first as well, but they've been a good side for a long time. And probably the pattern with the Bulldogs over the years seems to be there's an ordinary time to play them, and then there's a really ordinary time to play them, depending on their form. And it sort of seems to us at the moment, in terms of the timing, this is one of those really ordinary times, which is good for us at this time of year, because that's what we need. We need to keep working on our game, and it's the best way to work on your game is to put it up against really good teams.
I think he's tagged 3 weeks running now. Do we expect Bulldogs to stand next to Bontempelli at the first bounce tomorrow night?
It's an option we've got. Did he tag last week?
He started next to Wines.
Wines, yeah. Appearances can be deceiving. Yeah, I was trying to help you, Josh. Wouldn't it be nice? I mean, I'm a bit of a romantic when it comes to those sort of matchups. I think, who's the best midfielder in the comp? Like, if you said Bontempelli, you wouldn't get too many arguments. I know there's a few others in that conversation, but he's a rare play. He's not quite unique, Bontempelli, because, it would have been years ago. The 194 centimetre inside midfielder is very hard to combat. We just happen to be fortunate enough that we've got a tall midfielder ourselves.
There was a report during the week, there was no quotes attributed to anybody, that Patrick Dangerfield might have had just some back issues last week, just very minor. Is that correct?
No, he was a bit stiff in the game last week, it was, but I think, and I only learnt of this today, but apparently there were some rumours out there of some, dire scan results or whatever they were. I don't even know what the rumours were, but he's fine. So we talked about the upside of the press conference the day before. We can help you a little bit more with team selection. The downside is you don't get to see how well he moved on Wednesday, and he moved really well, and he'll be fine.
Thank you, everyone.
Nice.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank